Hey guys, this is Renee with Spirited Growth. I provide mindful mental health for bodies because it's not all in your head. And it feels really apropos that I was tagged in a post today about depression and how to holistically deal with depression. Unfortunately, my live, I can't put it in the comments section from my phone, so we'll get a separate post going here. So I really just want to say a few things on the topic of depression that haven't already been commented on in Sue's thread. Whenever I am meeting with with people concerning depression, one of the first things that I do, or anything really, is look for the low-hanging fruit. And so already in that thread, I saw a lot of comments about possible supplements, dietary changes, and these are all really supportive whenever it comes to things like anxiety and depression. The one thing that I want to add to the discussion is the idea or the support that can be provided through a mental health practitioner. And in particular, maybe a lens to be offered. So I do believe that there is such a thing as a pure chemical depression, okay? So there's no doubt that that exists in the world. We're all made differently. However, what usually gets us out of balance and into the zones with depression or anxiety is what happens in life. And those life experiences then put a lot of pressure on the system and then causes us to topple into various out of balance states. And depression can be one of them. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that depression, all of us have our MOs. Like I tell people, when you're stressed, do you tend towards anxiety or do you tend towards depression? So I check that out with clients. But a lot of us don't realize that anxiety is often the cause of depression. So the pinch point happens in life, and then when it's been going on for long enough that the body feels like it cannot sustain this state any longer, the parasympathetic nervous system actually does a different kind of job, and that is it starts suppressing the response so that we can tolerate going through life, and that suppressing of the response can lead to a depressed state that starts impacting all kinds of things, and again that impacts the chemical balance, etc. So one thing that I would ask someone if they came to me with depression is to tell me a little bit about when it started showing up, if there were any significant life events within weeks or months of it showing up, because that's going to tell me something about how it came to be in this body. What's interesting right now is trauma and the body response is really becoming a big thing. We're starting to understand more and more how the body responds to these pinch points in life and how that then leads to the imbalances. And so it's really starting to look with all the research out there that the next DSM, which is the big fat diagnostic manual for mental health and healthcare type people, is that we're probably going to be restructuring all of that because we're going to be looking more and more at how does life cause these imbalances. What are the pinch points? What are the traumas? And these can be small t traumas, like I can't even think of an example of that right now, but the guy cut me off in traffic. That'd be a small T trauma versus a big T trauma is like rape or war, etc. And the full range can end up toppling us into these heavily responsive states that we call anxiety or depression. So in terms of the role of the mental health practitioner, not only am I looking at where did this start, what might be the sources, how might we address it best, are there any supplements, dietary changes that we can do that can actually help us to start feeling a little bit better, because once we start feeling a little better, or sometimes even all the way better with those things, but once we start feeling a little better, then other things become possible, which is why, with your friend, no shame, no blame, like medications help us get there. They're bridges. And so, but the question is, can we also use it as a bridge and back off of it again? And so that's, again, no shame, but if that is my client's desire to get off the medication, can we get there? And one thing that we can help with is starting to look also at some of the habits that get us into that. And again, that's not saying you caused your depression. What it's saying, actually, what I can give you an example from my own life. So my MO is anxiety. If things get tough, I tend to start getting anxious and worrying. But at one point in my life, I did start into some depression. And it was so odd for me because I knew myself well that I thought, what is going on here? So I started logging things. I was watching my sleep and my diet and my monthly cycle and this and that and the other, trying to figure out and unravel how on earth did I get into depression. And what was interesting for me, eventually the end of the story was I discovered I had PTSD, but I started noticing my most depressed days were the days I hadn't slept well. And then on those days, what I also noticed was that because I interpreted the not sleeping well as being, there's a felt state to it. And not being rested feels a lot like depression. And so my mind goes, what's going on? Oh, I must be depressed. And then my mind just started providing reasons to be depressed. I'm a horrible person. I'm a horrible mom. I didn't do this right. My career's not where I want it to be. Whatever it is that I start feeding in. And so that is what I call a habit that feeds depression. So not only did I have the things that were edging me towards it, but then I was engaging in behaviors that would deepen it. And so in my particular case, when I noticed that I was doing that consistently after bad nights of sleep, I started making this religious practice of noticing that negative self-talk. Oh, I'm a horrible mom. And then I'd be like, no, not a horrible mom. I'm tired, not depressed, tired. And so I would start rewriting some of what I was telling myself that was actually creating a snowball effect that was deepening that state. So things like that can be very supportive as well. And there's a million things. And of course, going back, if it is a depression that has stemmed from a stress-related event, can we tackle that trauma? And that's where things like EMDR or neurofeedback can come in. So anyway, that's about all I have for today. I could go on for hours, but hopefully that will help you to narrow in and discover some additional ways to support your friend and maybe possibly get off of some of the medications. All right, take care. Have a good night.